Anyway, I think that rather neatly leads us on to the Enemy of the World Special Edition, which came out last week. It's actually, as we record, it's pretty much 5 years to the day since Doctor Who Online issued their pre-announcement of something missing episode-y, and therefore it's 5 years of the Land of Milk and Honey, the completely joyous experience that has been the Omnirumour.
True.
And then in October 2013, we got the Enemy and Web announcement. So come on, then, guys. How did you watch them? What happened? Where were you when they were announced? How did you feel?
Well, I was at home. It was a day that I wasn't working at that stage. I was recovering from an injury. When I broke my wrist, and I was sort of at home, and I'd heard about it, and it was about 10 o'clock in the morning because it was midnight in the UK, so it was 10 o'clock in the morning here, and within about half an hour I downloaded both of them on iTunes, and by the end of the day I'd watched Enemy. So yeah, basically it was like full on. I saw the little the trailers that they produced was the first thing that I saw, which really got me really excited. Particularly the web one was fantastic, I thought. And yeah, I downloaded them, got them off iTunes, and yeah, Enemy and I'd finished about 6 o'clock that day. So yeah, it was like a gorging myself on Doctor Who.
Richard?
Yeah, so somewhat similar. I mean, I remember in particular that week the Radio Times came out with an article saying that they were going to be released later in the week, and I guess that, although I've been following the saga, but that was the first time I thought, oh gosh, this really is going to happen. And I'm getting a thrill out of that. And then I woke up early the morning following the midnight announcement, started downloading on iTunes, and I had to go off to work that day, but I watched about the first 10 or 15 minutes of Enemy episode 1, and absolutely fantastic. I mean, I got all the exterior filming and then some of the early scenes at Astrid's house, and so much better than I could possibly have imagined. Really impressed.
Yeah, it was very emotional, actually. It was a very emotional moment. I rearranged the living room. I remember that, thinking, right, I'm going to watch this. I can't believe I'm going to watch it. And then I've had a very nice bottle of wine in the fridge. I hadn't been saving for anything in particular, but it was a nice bottle of Chablis. And I stuck the armchair in front of the computer, put my feet up, poured this wine, and then I watched all of Enemy that night as soon as I possibly could. Yeah. I gorged on it.
Yeah, same with me.
And what a joyful experience. I had a lump in the throat, I think, when it, about 5-10 minutes into it, as it was sinking in that I was watching it. And I watched all of Enemy. I even rewatched Web of Fear 1, and then I fell asleep half drunk in the chair and woke up the next morning.
See, it was easier for me because it was daytime for me,
of
so
course,
it was perfect. Yeah. So there were some glitches initially to download them from the Australian iTunes store, but they were there straight away, which was good.
Is that because they were hastily deleting Project Africa and retitling it?
Something like that. Yeah, and I downloaded them, and it was fantastic, and Enemy was so much better than I thought it would be.
And so, what did we think about the special edition then?
Well, look, I quite enjoyed Toby Haydock's treasure hunt making of thing. I think it's just a different way of doing it. It was a bit contrived, but it was different. Look, the thing I've got to say about it was that the revelation for the whole thing was Richard Bignell. He was brilliant. I thought he was sensational. He had this little twinkle in his eye. I would never have associated Richard with that, but I thought he was very game. He was sensational, and I think, look, in the end,
he warmed up a bit towards the end.
Yeah, Richard, you were fantastic, mate. You were sensational. It was so much better than Phil making his cameo appearance, and he did a reasonable job. And he's made it now that he's doing acting performances in special features. But he spoke to and I thought the ending was good too, particularly the production manager's daughter, because she'd obviously never seen or
the
remember
Martin Lismore piece was lovely, wasn't it?
That was lovely, and I thought that was a really nice way to end it too, and I thought that was really quite sweet. The reminiscence from people were actually, it was interesting. I'd sort of, Mary Peach, I'd sort of realised, seen her in a film that she made just before Enemy of the World called The Projected Man recently. Just, if you ever want to see, it's full of Doctor Who luminaries.
Did you get the impression by any chance that Mary Peach couldn't remember much?
No.
No.
Well,
I very strongly got that impression, but maybe that was, you haven't listened to the commentaries yet, but wait till you get to the commentaries.
She vaguely remembered having met Patrick Troughton, though.
The other thing was the bits from Barry Letts, which I hadn't really seen those before, when he was those archival interviews with him when he was he was a bit he was less than impressed with David Whittaker, was the impression that I got.
Yeah.
And also, there was so much nepotism in it. It was unbelievable.
I'll tell you what I enjoy. Back to Richard Bignell.
Yes.
He was very gay.
He was.
He threw himself at it,
Yeah.
and it was lovely. But he's not very good at pretending not to know everything about him.
Yes.
So we were expected to believe, on the one hand, that he didn't realise that Fraser Hines' brother was in it.
Yes.
And then in the next sentence, he's telling Toby that Martin Lismore got his the production assistant,
Yes.
got his wife to assist on the shoot and then appear as an extra in episode 5 and 6 or whatever it was. And oh, bless him,
Yeah.
it was so contrived. I enjoyed the David Troughton.
Yes.
Interview as well.
Yeah.
It was quite poignant, wasn't it? And it was quite sad, and it showed some of the distance between father and son.
Yeah.
I hadn't realised that David Troughton was in Enemy of the World. I assumed his first appearance was it the War Games?
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought, it was obviously, it could have lost about 20 minutes of padding, but they needed a vehicle to tie it all together.
Yeah.
Could have done without the Phil Morris bit.
Yes.
And much as I adored Richard's acting, it did it did pad it out rather a lot.
Well, I'll tell you what though. I was stuck on a tube train last week going up to London. South West Trains just gave up on me essentially, and so it actually helped me through that fairly horrendous experience. It was it was a nice jolly little thing while that was going on. I thought Barry Letts was really sharp actually in that. The bits they showed in the documentary, and it was a shame. It's a shame he was really down on the whole thing. He obviously hadn't seen it in a while, or the one thing that he had seen was episode 3, and he didn't think much of it.
Yeah.
But actually, if he'd been able to see episode 1 as we have, I think he'd have been a lot happier with his efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
And I thought also, there was a funny aspect as Phil Morris is praising David Whittaker to the heights. At the same time, you've got Barry saying that it's an absolute mess.
And how much of it was written by Peter Bryant? I think it was.
Yeah.
How about the Deborah Watling piece?
Well, I thought that was really lovely, actually. It was an affectionate sort of tribute to her. I thought, and I thought it was really good.
I thought it was good that they'd got family connections in there, because I think otherwise it's just the usual suspects saying much the same things, but you got a little bit more insight into what she was like from the family members and their memories.
Yeah.
So you haven't listened to the commentary,
no.
But Richard has. What did you make of that?
Well, I mean, it was very plodding at the very best. I mean, there was a bunch of actors' stories, except it was a bunch of actors who didn't really want to be there, so it seemed.
Oh, really? So who's on the commentary?
Well, there's
Mary Peach and Fraser Hines.
Okay.
For one episode, was it 2 episodes?
Couple of episodes at the start. Yeah.
And then Gordon Faith comes into it, and he plays the guard who cuts up the steak on the plate.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes.
And the
BAFTA
problem
material.
was Mary Peach and Gordon Faith had absolutely no recollections that they could share. Poor old Fraser Hines, I think, wasn't getting a lot of warmth, and he probably felt slightly isolated. And
I think he was a bit mined out as well, probably as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he had very much to say either.
Yeah, indeed. And poor old Simon Harries, the moderator. I don't think it's his fault necessarily, because he persevered with it, but he ended up doing about 50% of the conversation.
Oh, really?
And asking these slightly mismeasured questions, didn't quite get the sense of the mood of the room, and I don't know how on topic they have to stay or how on Doctor Who they have to stay, but I would have been tempted, if I was allowed, to do more of a Mythmakers type interview where you sort of, they can't remember a thing and you start asking them about their career a little bit more. And what do you make of Milton Johns, Richard?
Well, he really didn't want to be there. I mean, he didn't want to be doing Doctor Who in the first place, and he certainly didn't. If it hadn't been for the paycheck, he wouldn't have done the DVD commentary either.
I disagree. I think he did want to be there, and I think he wanted to be as awkward as possible. I thought it was hilarious. He talked a little bit about The Empire Strikes Back, so he warmed up talking about that because he got extraordinarily well paid for staying on site for weeks. But yeah, unfortunately, the commentary was a bit of a misfire. If you like hearing the moderator talk for half of it, it's fine. I don't mean.
Can I make a confession? I very rarely listen to the commentaries, to be honest. It's just.
I never sit and watch the show with the commentary on. I'll have it on in the background